When a show has a huge cast, it makes sense that certain characters will get lost and end up getting left behind. I've always thought about the number of characters that disappeared from Degrassi and it never got a send-off or a proper explanation about where this person even went. The Degrassi Black hole is a fan term for when characters from Degrassi have disappeared for no apparent reason. Sometimes the actor will leave the series, or the writers don't have any material or storylines for the characters anymore. Whatever the reason, a character is considered a black hole when they are never seen again and no explanation was given for their abrupt departure. Before we start, I'm only going to be including certain characters, not every single character obviously that disappears from the show, because that would be pretty redundant, but characters that have appeared a few times and they just got no explanation, especially if they played a part in a certain storyline or they were a main character at some point. So let's start with the minor characters and work our way up. Kendra Mason was introduced in season 2. She was mainly the love interest for Toby and Spinner's adoptive sister. She never had any plot lines of her own, mainly just being a side character, but I think they could have easily made Kendra more of a main character since she was a sibling of a main character. I always thought it was strange that she never became more prominent on the show since Degrassi did siblings fairly often. It would have also been interesting given the fact that Kendra was adopted and that she and Spinner lost their father. No one can say for sure what happened to her after the 3rd season, as Spinner never mentioned her after this point. There were also other events in the show that Kendra should have been present for, like Spinner getting testicular cancer, or when he married Emma, or his graduation. Events that you think a sister would be there for. When I was researching this, I found out something interesting. Kendra is actually featured in a graphic novel series called Degrassi Extra Credit, titled Missing You, which takes place between seasons 5 and 6. So a lot of people thought maybe she transferred from Degrassi. We don't know if this is true, but that being said, some people in the Degrassi community often refer to Kendra when talking about the Degrassi Black hole, since she is the first noticeable character that just disappeared without really having any explanation. Kendra's friend, Nadia Ymir, also disappeared after season 3 with Kendra, which makes sense since she was just a background character as well. She was clearly never meant to have any main plot lines, and it makes sense that we don't see this character if Kendra isn't really seen. Since Kendra was no longer needed, they didn't really need the character anymore. I thought I should mention it since she was friends with Kendra and she was in a fair bit of episodes, but she didn't really play any role in the main plot at all. Anybody remember Charlie, that girl, that adult woman that was a love interest for Fiona for that blip of time in season 11?
Just go back to high school, okay, Fiona?
Go back to high school.
After Fiona went to rehab, they kind of course corrected and realized we probably shouldn't do that, and that was probably for the best because we got Fiona and Imogen, which I absolutely love. But I always wondered why they never really wrote off the character in any way. Maybe things just fizzled out. Maybe Fiona just realized things weren't working. Maybe Charlie realized she probably shouldn't be with a teenager. I really don't know. I was never really rooting for Fiona and Charlie because Charlie is an adult and Fiona is a teenager, and Charlie never really seemed that interested, and she's an adult. I just find it weird that the show never gave an explanation as to what happened to her. They were just like, who cares? So the next character I also noticed that disappeared, he didn't really play much of a role in the show at all either, but I noticed that this character named Julian, a friend of Drew and Owen's, he was seen hanging out with them on a handful of occasions. I just noticed that this character just disappeared, and he was in a few episodes hanging out with Drew and Owen, so I just thought it was weird that the character is just never really seen at all. So another character I always wondered about, and it's really minor, but did Katie and Maya have a father? I'm pretty sure they had a father in the earlier episodes. What happened to him? We never really see him ever again. They don't really explain if the parents got divorced or something. Maybe he left and they don't want to talk about it. Seems like the show just forgot. In the next class, we don't hear from the father or see see him at all. You'd think that he'd be there for his daughter when she tried to take her own life, but we don't see him at all, so they probably just retconned him because he didn't really play a significance in the show before. Another character I admittedly didn't know the name of until I looked it up was Keisha, and you're probably thinking, who's Keisha? She was friends with Frankie and Zoe in season 13, but it seems like the black hole swallowed up Keisha with the rest of the characters this far. In season 14, we're introduced to Shay, who seems to be the replacement black girl character for Keisha, but I always wondered why this happened. Was the character not interesting enough so they thought we wouldn't notice? Was it the actor who wanted to leave? It's too bad that Keisha didn't really get to be a main character. I mean, it's not like she was really that memorable anyway, so. Next character, Arlene. She was a lover of comics and seemed to be incredibly antisocial and the victim of bullying to a certain extent. She was a love interest / friend of Hunter Hollingsworth until suddenly disappearing after season 14. To be honest, I kind of like this character more than Yael, and I feel like she had more interests that were similar to Hunter's. Then in the next class, they made him more into games than comic books, so he had to have a new group of gamer friends. And I don't know, I like that they were both into comic books and were nerds and socially awkward. They don't mention anything about this character or where she went. I know the reason is probably that she moved away like all the other characters, but it just seemed like they were building up to something between Hunter and Arlene, and they never do anything with this. It's kind of unfortunate that the new characters they add just get forgotten about like this. Another character added in season 13, Jack, was introduced as a love interest for Imogen, and we learned some things about her, how she liked dancing, cheering, and that she is polyamorous but is open to being monogamous if it's with the right person. Jack hasn't come out to her parents, and that creates problems for her and Imogen. Imogen wants to be more out with their relationship, but Jack doesn't. She eventually breaks things off with Jack, and honestly I think for fairly shallow things, like the fact that she didn't want to dance with her at prom, or that she hasn't come out. But at the same time, I guess I understand why she didn't want to be in a relationship like that. It was also because Imogen was graduating, but if they broke them up, why didn't they do anything more with Jack? It just seems like a pointless thing to add to end the relationship just to not do anything with the character that hasn't graduated yet. It seems just like Arlene and Jack got lost in the shuffle to Netflix, and that kind of sucks because I think we could have had interesting storylines for Jack and Arlene, and especially for Jack and coming out to her parents. She had more to give us as a character, I think, and it sucks how the show didn't really see that potential, so she's really just known as Imogen's ex-girlfriend. Damon was introduced in season 11 along with Zig, mainly to be Zig's friend and also to give us more insight on his home life. It also seems like they could have made Damon a main character over time. It felt like he was interesting enough where they could have added him to being a main character, but they just kind of didn't because, again, he was kind of just side character. And after a while, they just didn't really find any use for him, except for the weird gang beef between Zig's gang and the other gang. And we also have Tiny, so he gets to be Zig's new best friend. And Damon, I guess, just either drops out of Degrassi or he goes to a different school, I guess. Another thing where I think Degrassi could have added a character, but they just decided to not use him. So now we get on two main characters. Winnie O, which is a really stupid name, I have to say. She is the music teacher and computer teacher at Degrassi. She was introduced in the show in season 10 and was throughout until season 13. She was never really a main character, even though they credited her as a main character for some reason. And also she had a relationship with a student, which I will get back to eventually. They never really did anything to make Miss O interesting as a teacher, but for some reason they had her credited with the other characters as if she played any role or had any plot lines to herself. We saw a few plot lines that she had, mainly the one where she's dating a student.
I'm your teacher.
For 3 more weeks.
I'm your teacher.
Maybe the show had more plans for Miss O and kinda just never really went anywhere with the character, but she was on for a bit of time, so it's just weird that the character just disappears and they don't really say anything, especially for a character that was credited as a main character. This isn't the first time in Degrassi that we've seen teachers phased out of the show, so I guess I'm not really surprised in that regard, but I just thought it was weird since she was on it for a few seasons that they didn't really explain what happened to her. Maybe she finally got fired for having a relationship with a student. Derek started the show as a funny sidekick to Danny and was a fairly nice kid overall, until he somewhere started turning into a jerk that frames his friend and a freak that physically assaults girls. He was just a horrible friend to Danny, and I hate what they turned the character into. This character is last seen in this moment.
Hey, Allie. I brought some rope.
Why are you the way that you are? I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
This is the last impression we get of this character before he's just Thanos snapped from existence. Again, maybe the show just ran out of things to do with this character, they forgot about him, or the actor wanted to leave, but I've already stated that it sucks that Derek was turned into this and just left like this. Next character, Leia. Leia was introduced in season 8, and she never really got any plot lines aside from one where she lies to Danny and his friends about her father being a famous music producer.
We're going to my place to watch Lost. You're invited. No liar, Leia.
Okay, fine. The truth is, I'm a little freaked. Lately, Sav's been coming on to me.
Liar!
No biggie. Obviously, he's hung up on Anya. He's just flirty and stuff. Makes me uncomfortable.
It's weird how the show never attempted to do anything with this character. The last time she's seen is when she's talking to Anya about her mother possibly having an affair, but after that, she just disappeared. In this case, it seems to be because the actress who played Leia decided to focus on her studies at Harvard, so it makes sense why the character never had plot lines and was phased out after a while. They probably realized that there wasn't really anything else they could do with the character or really wanted to do with the character, so it makes sense. Blue was introduced in season 8 as a love interest for Holly J. We saw a few episodes with him and Holly J, and it seemed like things were moving in the next direction for them, especially after Blue realizes that Holly J had been held at gunpoint. But this wasn't a turning point for the character to become important to the show. He just remained a character used to move the plot forward for Holly J. Then they just wrote him off with Holly J getting annoyed by him.
Bye, Allie.
It's Holly freaking J.
It sucks that this character didn't get a chance to have his own storylines or personality outside of Holly J. I just think it's weird when they credit these characters that really don't play a role or probably should have just been background characters. I think maybe in their heads they had a plan to do something, but they just didn't. And it's obvious from a mile away that this character is a plot device, just a love interest for Holly J. But they could have at least tried to expand on his character outside of her, even just a little bit. It's just once Holly J broke up with him, he just disappeared. There's no need for him anymore. And he probably is one of the most boring characters that was added to the show in the entire history of the show. And it's incredible how uninteresting this character was and how forgettable he was. For a character in the opening title sequence, it's just really strange to me that they didn't give him more to do. Wesley started out in season 9 at first as just a one-time appearance and then became more of a main character in seasons 10 and 11. He's socially awkward.
What gives? What's so important you gotta ignore me for?
That was my mom. I have to pick her up after her radiotherapy today.
Well, I wish her all the best.
And has trouble with girls.
Well, I like people, and I'm good at science.
Well, it sounds like you're a really sweet guy, Wesley.
Yeah, that's what my mom tells me.
He's a geek and pretty basic and bland, and there wasn't really much we could do with this character. We had some fun plots with Wesley.
She was too small to take the big screen.
I think I need to take a shower.
But mostly he just served his nerdy kid purpose and hung out with Dave and Connor. The most we see this character do is form a band with them, or or get into a pogo stick competition, or try to go out with Anya, or get pulled over for driving with only a permit. The show seemed to be aware that there wasn't much they could do with him, which is why he doesn't really have any deep plot lines, or really plot lines at all in season 11. He's really just a glorified side character, and I really hate to say that, but after his grade 10 school year, the character was never mentioned again, and no one seemed to notice either. The actor even confirmed that he wasn't returning to Degrassi as his character was used to his fullest extent. That just tells me everything I need to know. And last but not least, we have Dave Turner, which is the most interesting character on this entire list to me, because Dave is probably the one with the most plot lines here, the one that was actually a main character, not a glorified side character. Dave started the show in season 9 as the goofy freshman trying to get people to notice him, and constantly striking out with Allie. Dave would also be close with Connor and Wesley for a while, and for a long time the show acknowledged Dave as a loser, but around the end of season 10, Dave was seen hanging out with Drew more and his friends. We also saw that Dave had gotten over his traditional beliefs about women being shorter than men, and his bigoted beliefs about trans people. We actually see this character grow from season 9 to season 12. Out of all the characters on this list, he's really the only one that actually goes through substantial change. Dave also played the main role in Romeo and Jules, a gay version of Romeo and Juliet, and we see at first that he struggles to be seen as a gay man, but he learns that it's really just no big deal to be seen as gay. He tries to act more gay for a practice run, and it fails horribly.
Hi, I'm over here. I will not tell you my name.
Okay, stop!
And learns that he needs to just play himself and not play a character that is stereotypically gay. Just play a person that happens to be gay. Dave ended up cheating on Allie with someone named Jacinta, a girl he met while Allie was away during the summer. He and Allie eventually get back together, but when Jacinta returns, Dave blames himself when she gets hit by a car. After a while, we don't really see Dave hanging out with Connor and Wesley as much. Hell, we don't even see him hanging out with Drew. In early season 12, we see him hanging out with the freshmen sometimes.
I don't need another spring, I don't need another fall. Girl, if I got you, yeah, then I got it all.
Oh, brother!
And then we see him talking to Eli occasionally towards the end of season 12, but Dave really isn't utilized anymore. He's not really a character on the show at this point. You could feel that the show reached a point where they didn't know what to do with this character. After he and Allie broke up for the final time, Dave became a background character basically. We'd see him interacting with people occasionally, but it was really only to serve the plot, like when he talked to Eli about his dad's job as a cop after Eli found Cam. Dave wouldn't have any more plot lines of his own, and by the end of the first block of season 13, we see him once more at Drew's house after Adam dies. Again, he's just here to really serve the plot because he was close enough with Adam. After this, Dave wouldn't return to Degrassi, and we didn't get a send-off for him or an explanation. The characters don't even mention what happened to him at all. It's very weird because Dave played more of a prominent role in the show for a while, but they'd have him here and there throughout the show, but not really in a main way. It's also possible that the actor wanted to leave, but was willing to come back for guest appearances here and there. I just wish that they had a proper send-off for the character. Well, those are all the characters I could dig up that went into the Degrassi black hole. I really hope that you enjoyed this list of characters. I found it really interesting to go back through all of these characters that were in my memory that just disappeared, and it was fun to compile a list and discuss them like this. Let me know how you feel about these characters, because I genuinely have certain opinions about some of them, as you could tell, but I want to hear what you think. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
You were always on my mind.